Hello, welcome to my review / breakdown of Game of Thrones Season 7, Episode 2. The episode is called Stormborn. I'm going to start with a little review with no spoilers, and then I'll let you know when the spoilers start so you can stop watching, go watch the episode or whatever, and come back if you want. So, this episode, it starts out with a lot. It's mostly set up. We have a couple people meeting that haven't met before, but nothing too significant. It's a lot of setup until the third act, and then the third act has a lot of action, and it's pretty cool. It's not as just set up as, you know, old seasons were, to where there'd be episodes where nothing happened but set up. So, you know, it's still got its setup, but it still has that action in there that we wouldn't have gotten without the longer episodes and the shorter season. So, overall, great episode. I have no real issues with it. I know that some people don't like the setup and the long time it takes to get things going, which I don't think this episode will bother you that much. You might be starting to think that it's gonna, you know, be all set up until you get to the point where it stops just being set up. And we get a lot of characters kind of talking about other characters that we haven't gotten before, you know, and that's pretty cool. And a lot of setup for what's happening next episode. Next episode should be pretty cool. I imagine that we'll see a lot of characters reuniting or meeting for the first time. So that will be cool. And I guess that ends my non-spoiler review, and I'm going to go into a breakdown now. We start this episode with Daenerys' War Council, and we're starting to see that. Well, first we see her questioning Varys. Her first real interaction with Varys so far, and it's kind of odd that they, you know, traveled all this way and just are now talking about it. But it's basically laying out what Varys' true motivations are, what he says they are, and it makes pretty good sense. And like Daenerys basically saying, "How can I trust you?" and him saying, "Well, how can I trust you? I am only here to do what's best for the people. If you aren't doing what's best for the people, yeah, I would betray you." And she basically says, "Well, no, don't betray me. Tell me what I'm doing wrong." And that's very big of her, but we'll see if that's actually the reality of the situation, because that usually doesn't go over well with a king. That's the problem with kings and dictators and things like that, is that they aren't open to criticism. And that criticism from the common people usually never reaches them, or they never care about it. So Daenerys acts like she cares about it, and we've seen her care about it, but we don't know if she will always continue to care about it. And Varys, that all makes sense. I don't know if it lines up with how he is in the books, really. And we don't even know if he's telling the truth, because it's Varys. But generally, I believe he does have the best interest, and I think the show is going to go that way because he is a likable character, unlike Littlefinger. And we have Tyrion defending him, which is nice. I would hate it if we stopped getting Tyrion and Varys buddy stuff. And then we go on to the next scene, and Melisandre just shows up at Dragonstone. It's like, "Hey, I want to help you." And, you know, where else is she going to go? She's banished from the north. And the only, you know, Cersei's going to be hostile to her because she was for Stannis. Although, I mean, Stannis and Daenerys weren't friends, but she is much more forgiving and has a reputation for being, let's say, more in line and more tolerant of the followers of the Lord of Light. Being that they kind of helped her in Meereen. And then we have Melisandre just basically saying, "Hey, I don't know if you are the prince that was promised, but you're a candidate, but there's this other guy too. You should meet up with him." And that's Jon Snow. And Tyrion's like, "Oh, hell yeah, Jon Snow's the king now? Call him down." Like, I'm gonna be really happy to see them back together. You know, they're not who they were back then, but they both have respect for each other. And it's nice to see that Daenerys takes a word, although she's kind of douchey about it. Like, tell him to bend the knee. You didn't make the Ironborn bend the knee. How are they more worthy of not bending the knee than the Starks? I guess she has a little bit of resentment against the Starks, considering the role Ned played in Robert's Rebellion. And I think, you know, she hears great things about the Starks from all of her advisors, basically. You know, except for Jorah. Jorah's kind of bitter at him. But then there's Barristan that's just like, yeah, Ned Stark was, like, one of the best. And then, you know, Tyrion isn't ever going to, you know, say anything bad about the Starks. He seems to genuinely respect them, although I don't think he considers them good players of the Game of Thrones, which Ned and Robb weren't really. Well, Robb was, but he fell to some very underhanded, downright moronic tactics, if by the phrase, if you follow my view on it. That did not work out well for the phrase, and it never was going to. And then next, I believe we have Samwell in the Citadel, and he is mostly, he's basically only dealing with Jorah in this. And you know that moment he hears him say his name is Mormont, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna save you." And that procedure that he's putting Jorah through, oh man, that is brutal. And of course, this season they're cutting away from food, from disgusting things, to food a lot. So yeah, we have Sam basically saying, "I found this obscure reference to how to treat this," and he's saying, "Why don't we do this?" And they basically say, "Well, because it's too risky, and the person who came up with that died of dragon scale." So Sam's just going off the reservation to help Jorah, and it makes sense. It's because he's the Lord Commander's son, and I think Sam knows that he owes the old Lord Commander a lot, because he could have been left behind to die, and the Lord Commander made sure that didn't happen. And another Lord Commander would have, you know, Jonas Slint would have, any of those other candidates, you know, for the Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, Alistair Thorne, they would have fed him to, you know, wolves or whatever. And then from there, we get some Arya stuff, and we get some Arya stuff. She meets with Popeye, which is really cool, and I'm really hoping that when she gets back to Winterfell, she's just like to someone like, "Hey, go down to the Crossroads Inn with a sack of gold. Tell them you are taking Popeye to be our cook, and he's gonna get paid well." Like, that would be really cool for her to be like, "My bro is getting set up here as the cook," and just, you know, be. And so I don't remember if it was before that or right after, but we have Daenerys' war council, and we have everyone seeming to disagree with her and saying, just take King's Landing, until Tyrion lays out the plan. And basically the plan is have all of the Westerosi allies that they have attack the Lannister, or attack King's Landing, so it doesn't look like a foreign army, and then have the Unsullied go and just take out the Casterly Rock. Because, like Tyrion says, Casterly Rock has been the power in Westeros for a while now. Since Tywin became Hand of the King, it's basically been the capital of the kingdom that no one really recognized. You know, all the power came from there. All the wealth came from there. And most of the influence and the governance. So it makes a lot of sense, especially if you just want to cut them off from their home. They'll be very isolated. And of course, everyone gets a little bit back on board. And then we see Daenerys talking with the Queen of Thrones, and she's the most skeptical of it. She's pretty embittered right now. I liked her whole thing on how Marjorie's like the most loved queen that Westeros has had that she knows of. Which, you know, she's old, but she's not that old. But it stands to point, like, no one's doing anything in King's Landing to stop Cersei. They must all be afraid or just not care. And we also see, what's-his-face Tully, Sam's dad, at King's Landing, talking with, well, in audience, when Cersei is basically announcing Daenerys' invasion and hyping it up, using a lot of racism to stir up resentment against the foreign invaders, which seems to be Daenerys' problem, like, always. You're a foreign invader, no matter where you're going. No matter where you go, you're a foreign invader. You're in Meereen, you're a foreign invader. You're in Westeros, your homeland, you're a foreign invader. And we see that, I can't remember his name, but Tully is very conflicted. He doesn't want to betray the Tyrells, but he doesn't want to fight with what they call savages, which, I mean, in other instances, and I always had a problem with the idea that Daenerys was just going to bring a Dothraki horde over, like in the first couple of seasons. Like, no, they are going to mess things up. And now it's kind of better. I don't know how she's going to control that. I hope they don't play it off like, oh yeah, all my people, you know, just do what I tell them to, and they, you know, they stop their raping and enslaving ways just because I'm the mother of dragons. Like, I think she's still going to have some problems with the Dothraki. And, okay, even if she won the Iron Throne, 10 years down the line, she's going to have some problems with Dothraki in her kingdom. Because they're going to be like, why are we doing this? Let's go back to doing what we do. Or even, you know, whoever takes over from her reign, you know, if she gets to reign. We don't know if anyone's going to get a reign. It's Game of Thrones. They might all die. And then, you know, we go back to the north, and we see that Jon is basically decided that he's going to go see Daenerys, which isn't that bad of an idea, but everyone is objecting to it, partially because of their fears of the South, and they're basically... The North has basically become the North has basically become isolationists, and they don't really care at all what's going on south of the neck at this point. But like Jon says, they really need that dragon glass and more people to help. Like, the North is thinly populated. They're not that big of a power anymore. They never were the greatest power, but now they've had several wars and winter's coming. They're not going to be a significant force to take on the army of the dead. They're not going to be able to take on the Night's King. So what Jon is doing makes perfect sense, especially knowing that they have the materials that they need for the weapons. And then I get-ish Sansa's objection, but it's partially because she doesn't understand at all what it really means, what's going on. She thinks you're going to go down there, this is another person playing the Game of Thrones, it's another Cersei, and you'll die. Because we aren't... She basically thinks that Jon isn't able to play the Game of Thrones like Littlefinger and Cersei and all them, and she's going to end up dying like Robb or Ned. Which, it's a fair call, but Jon has more experience than people think he does. The Night's Watch was not a friendly environment to him. He had to play a lot of politics. And then even to become the Lord's Commander. And to become the Lord Commander, he really had to walk a thin line with politics. I mean, he did something amazingly controversial in bringing the wildlings across the wall. So, we have that, and then we have Arya in the woods, and she meets up with Nymeria. And it's kind of crazy, but at the same time, it's kind of pointless, because Nymeria basically just goes, yeah, no, we're not going to kill you, but I'm wild, like you are, and I'm not going to come follow you. I wouldn't be surprised if she tags behind and maybe goes up north, but we don't know. They seem to be cutting back on direwolves, which is disappointing. We haven't seen Ghost yet this year, I don't think, and I don't know if we will. It's what it is. They'd rather spend the budget on dragons. I think the direwolves are just as worthy, but I was hoping that Jon was bringing Ghost with him to Dragonstone to be like, hey, you got your dragons, check out my gigantic albino wolf. That's still pretty cool, right? But we also have a very steamy scene with Missandei and Grey Worm. And all I'm going to say about that is Missandei is very attractive, and we'll move on. And then, we have the Greyjoys bringing the Sand Snakes back to Dorne, and then they get attacked by Euron, and it gets crazy from there. We have, well, just first off, Euron's ship is very intimidating. They did a very good job designing it. And then that he was the first person to cross that gangplank, and just being crazy was awesome. You're like, oh, that is Euron. And he fights two of the Sand Snakes and kills them both. And I don't think too many people are going to care that much. We see that he captures, I'm forgetting all the Sand Snakes' names, captures the youngest Sand Snake and Olenna? Or is that the Queen of Thorns? I don't know. The Viper's consort, who basically took over Dorne. And Theon kind of bitches out and jumps overboard, but I don't like, they portrayed that like he's being such a coward, but he's looking around, he's seeing people's tongues and stuff being cut off, and he's like, okay, you have an axe blade at her throat. What was he supposed to do? Like, he was taunting him, but not Euron, but Theon didn't have a choice in the matter on what he was going to do. And it's going to be interesting to see what happens next episode. I'm guessing he's going to be at Dragonstone. It looked like he was, so that will be a little interesting. He's probably going to meet Jon, and he's probably going to be messed up from what happened again. He's probably going to be slipping backwards. Maybe Jon will bring him out of it, since who else is going to... Yara was the only one that's been able to bring him out of it so far. Yara and Sansa. So, yeah, we have next episode is going to be crazy. This one was pretty awesome. I don't know if we're going to get any battles next episode. I would think so. but we will get some epic meetups for the first time and reunions. We still have, Bran still hasn't made it back from Castle Black yet. And Arya decided to head north after hearing Jon had taken back Winterfell, which she didn't know apparently, which I can understand. Maybe she's not getting all of the information. She's been determined, so it's a little far-fetched that she didn't know. Like, that would be big news. This guy that's died has come back and taken back Winterfell from the Boltons and avenged the Red Wedding. I think everyone from the Riverlands up is going to be talking about it, and then in the South, there are going to be murmurs of it. So that was a little bit unrealistic, but I'll give them a pass on it. But yeah, I am excited for next episode. I hope you guys are too. And subscribe to my channel so you can see when the next video comes out. I'm going to be doing a bunch of reactions because a bunch of stuff came out because of Comic-Con. So there'll be some trailer reactions and stuff. So tune in for that too. Thanks for watching.